He was very unhappy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Luis?
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're
Wait. Can't wait.
actually wait till it actually
Eyes here,
gets 4:30 on my
faces.
computer.
A sea of
The
blue.
computer's probably right.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
You doing well?
Yeah.
Right.
School going well?
Good afternoon. There is more noise in here than a grade school cafeteria. This is very, very exciting. Welcome to the September 27th, 2016 regular meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors, and it's hereby called to order. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're now at section 3.0, the roll call. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Present?
Present.
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 We're now at section 4.0, the adoption of the agenda. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please introduce the agenda?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Consistent with the plans established at your 2016 Summer Planning Workshop, tonight's agenda contains several elements related to both the district's strategic plan and the board's annual goals. There is a segment this evening for routine business. It's actually an extended segment with multiple recognitions. We've got recognition items and that segment for strategic progress reporting that usually is the pivot point for your agenda. Tonight we've got a segment for upcoming agenda items and one for board comments. This evening there are no information items, nor any unfinished business, nor any new business. Since publishing the agenda, the following items have been updated. Item 4.1, adoption of agenda, was updated with a revised timing sheet in order to correctly reflect the order of the recognition items. 5.3, recognition of schools of distinction, was added to the agenda today as a result of the embargo being lifted earlier with the public announcement out of the agencies that run that program. Item 7.2, approval of the personnel report, was revised as the personnel report was updated today. Item 8.1, superintendent's report, will be updated during the meeting as is customary for regular meetings. The board may elect to change the order of business by a majority vote of the members.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cohn. Is there a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Mason to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. We're now at section 5.0, and we have a number of recognitions that we want to get through tonight. Very exciting. A number of you in the room, and we invite you to stay for the entire board meeting if you're so inclined. So we know that won't happen. But Dr. Cohn, would you like to start us off?
I'd be delighted to. Item 5.1 is recognition of Lowell Elementary School's Elementary Title I Reading Performance Growth Award. Dr. Stewart is going to lead us through this particular recognition, and I want to note that we are overcome this evening with Lowell Leopards.
So I'd like to invite Cindy Foster, principal of Lowell, to join me. So a big congratulations goes to Cindy Foster, some of you know, principal at Lowell Elementary School, and each staff member here at Lowell, and all the little Lowell Leopards. So I see we even have tiny ones in the audience. And I remember when I was principal at Evergreen, and you'd ask students, where'd you come from, which school? And they wouldn't say Lowell, they'd just say very quickly, Lowell Leopard. I'm a Lowell Leopard. So that's the name of the school, the Lowell Leopards. So over the last 2 or 3 years, Cindy knows that the school has been so close to being recognized for other achievement awards. And it's just, but the close is over. It's no so close anymore. So then when the announcement went out about 3 weeks ago, she was just ecstatic, and it was so great to be able to call her and say congratulations. So Lowell is receiving a Title I ELA Performance Award from OSPI for student growth performance during the 2014-15 school year. So how did they improve students' performance? This is a school that you can describe it in about 4 words: continuous, continuous, continuous improvement. It's part of the school culture on a daily basis. So prior to being a principal, Cindy was a very highly effective teacher and literacy coach. We used to fight over who was going to get to have her as the coach in our buildings. And she continues to be a principal teacher, and she works with her teachers to improve their teaching and learning practices. And in addition, there are high levels of staff collaboration and pride that exists at Lowell, and a variety of stakeholders assume responsibility for students' learning success, including, if you visited Lowell, you'll see some volunteers who not just volunteer once a week, but some of them who come daily and have been there for many, many years and continue to volunteer in a very humble way at Lowell. So I want to say congratulations to Lowell Elementary School, especially Cindy and each staff member out here and all the Lowell Leopards. Make a comment?
Thank you, Dr. Stewart, for those kind remarks. We're just very, very thankful. We have been working so hard for many, many years, and it's such a nice time right now to be recognized. And I really want to say thank you to the staff for their tremendous support today. We're all wearing our I Love, I'm a Lowell Leopard shirts. It's been a long path and one that we're still continuing to grow. We still have lots of room for improvement, but we're just hard workers. We're dedicated, and it's just nice to finally have some recognition for that, for all that hard work. And it was just a group effort, and we just appreciate you recognizing us today. Thank you.
So I think, should we do individual pictures because we've got different circumstances today, right?
Correct.
Should we do that? So should we have all the leopards
I think we should.
gather
Let's bring
in a
all
pride?
the
Since we have
leopards
some
forward.
little leopards, we want them to stick with
Pride,
us.
and we'll do that photograph,
We'd like
and
to invite
then
all the leopards up here.
and then after we're done with the series of photographs. After
even
we're
have
done
a
with the
formal
series,
leopard.
Cindy, I heard
After
there was
done
a
with all the
song you were
photographs, we'll
going
do
to
the cake.
sing.
So before you begin your song, which we're very excited to do, we have a certificate of recognition awarded to Lowell Elementary School for earning a student growth performance grant in English language arts from OSPI and for ongoing dedication and support for students of Everett Public Schools. Congratulations.
Get you all in here close.
That's exciting. We're going to sing. Seriously?
I work hard, I show respect, I make good choices. I am a Lowell leopard. Only one more row to have these 5 people split up and find a spot and take it all.
have music tonight. Good job.
So that's a remarkable recognition. And while I didn't actually count the number of staff, the number of leopards here to celebrate, I would suggest that's probably the largest contingent of from a school that we've had, whether it's a high school, middle school, and elementary school, and that shows the kind of spirit, togetherness, and the reason why you've made the progress you've made. Thank you all very, very much for all the work you've done and for being with us this evening. Item 5.2 on the recognition calendar this evening is an opportunity to host guests from our county council. We have the county council president, Councilman Terry Ryan, with us, and the council vice president, Brian Sullivan, here with us this evening. Snohomish County has awarded grants to Cedarwood, Hawthorne, and Lowell elementary schools to help replace or enhance their play structures on their playgrounds or other playground equipment. This is a new and unique opportunity for us. We were invited to participate in the small capital grants programs, and the council members are here to present the ceremonial check to us this evening. And I'm going to ask the councilman to come forward to the lectern and talk a little bit about the program and tell us how you would like to present the very large oversized check that the bank will have fun processing.
And we won't make you sing like the previous day, though it would be interesting. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. That is a tough act to follow, so please, you'll kick me out right away if I sing. I see an Everett police officer right outside the door, and this would not be good, would it?
You're lucky it wasn't a choir.
Right. Well, look, I'd like to thank everybody here, both the audience and the school board, for inviting us tonight. And you know, this has kind of been a journey for me, so I wanted to tell you just a very short story. 2008, when I was elected, I did a lot of research coming out of the state legislature looking at different county funds. And we have a fund called REIT 2, Real Estate Excise Tax. Number 2, there's REIT 1, there's REIT 2. I won't get into any details, but REIT 2 can only be used for recreational purposes. And for the last 40 years, Snohomish County has invested that money wisely into regional parks. But having said that, looking at that number of $12 million that we collect every year, you know, it dawned on me that the county council needs to reach out to every district and do something positive for children, school districts, and youth organizations. So we budget about $50,000 to $75,000 per year and go through a grant process. And, you know, I'm happy to say that you're receiving almost $30,000. So it's very gratifying for me. I will tell you, though, when I started in 2008, it wasn't until 2012 till we did our first grant, because never in the history of Snohomish County has the county council ever done a grant program. So we kind of had to start from scratch to, you know, get the word out and let people know what we were up to. So it's very exciting, you know, to be here tonight and to build this partnership and this synergy, and hopefully both Terry and I can be at the ribbon cutting. So Terry, and I'd like Terry to say a few words too as well.
Thank you. We're really honored to be here. And Brian really said it all. I think Brian probably established this before I got on the council. I've been on the council for about 2.5 years. And what I'd really like to do is turn this back on you. First of all, thank you for everything you do for our community and most importantly, our children. This is the future. I know you know it, so I'm singing to the choir here, but I was invited to speak at a graduation ceremony to a grade school down in Seattle, the one I went to. And the first thing I did there was thank the teachers, because really the teachers have probably the greatest influence on the kids. And the teachers, you look back, we were all kids one day, right? They inspired us, and that really inspires us to strive to be better and to do good for the community. And that's the reason Brian and I got into politics. It was about doing the right thing for everybody, doing as much good as we can for everyone. So back to the grants. It is an application process. I remember talking to Dr. Cohn about this early on and encouraged the schools to apply. And the fact that the 3 of them made the cut, for lack of a better term, is really gratifying. And I think Lowell, I think, got the lion's share of it. I think. Is that right, Ryan?
Pretty close, yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne, my apologies, and Lowell, and I just find it very fitting, and again, very gratifying. So, in summary, thank you for everything you do. By the way, Carolyn can attest this, so can Dr. Cohn. I'm all in on your bonds and your levies. We want you to have the money to continue the great work that you're doing, and thank you for honoring us, for letting us be here today. Thank you.
See you. So you could actually check the math if you want. We just aggregated all three. So I think we're going to do a picture, right?
That'd be great.
Okay.
And squeeze together just a little bit more if you would. Absolutely. Here, we take one here. Can I have you come up too, since Lowell's getting the award at some point? Okay. We're good. Just scoot in just a little bit more. Let's try on this side.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
good.
I can't.
I don't want to confuse it.
And then Caroline. You guys gotta scooch in actually a little bit more. That's it. That's it. All right. 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3. Want to grab yours?
I'm going to follow her lead. I'll
Okay.
get over here. All right, 1, 2, 3. Those are good. And then one more on here.
And can we get one more? Since Lowell is one of the recipients of Lowell. He's the principal?
There you go. Good.
Okay, great. All right. 1, 2. Look this way. 1, 2, 3. One more for measure. 1, 2, 3.
Good seeing you.
Have a good night. Thank you. Coaching a game at Glacier. Literally, I had to learn the game so I can try to.
All right, just a quick footnote. The schools that received those grants were Cedarwood. Cedarwood received an $8,507 grant. Lowell received a $5,000 grant, and Hawthorne Elementary received a $16,000 grant, which I think was the largest in that particular grant program's history for this type of a grant. Item 5.3 is an item that we posted to the agenda today when the embargo was lifted by the folks who do this award. Tonight, we have the pleasure of recognizing Sequoia High School, Garfield Elementary School, and Whittier Elementary School. The schools have been named Washington State Schools of Distinction for 2016. They are among the 94 schools across the state that met the criteria for 5 consecutive years of growth, and they are in the top 5%. That's what qualifies them to earn that distinction this year. Staff members and school leaders are here with us this evening, and I'm going to ask Dr. Stewart to come up to the lectern again so that we can recognize those schools. And then we're going to have some cake. Cake.
So I'm going to invite Kelly Shepard to join me. So I'd like to say congratulations to Kelly and the staff at Sequoia High School. This is such a memorable moment for Kelly and each staff member. So yesterday in our principals meeting, we unpacked the quote, "Fairness does not mean everyone gets the same. Fairness means everyone gets what they need." When we were sharing that, what that looks like in a school, I immediately thought of Sequoia. Staff members get to know each student's interests, their passions, their strengths, their struggles, and then they personalize their instruction and access a variety of resources, right, Kelly?
All legal.
She says all legal, to help students experience success and create a plan for the future. Another strength the school possesses is the way that they communicate with students and their families and other schools, because Sequoia works with all the other schools in Everett Public Schools. They truly exhaust all strategies to make connection. Again, this is just a great moment and just a time to celebrate, so I hope that this is the beginning of the celebration, and I hope you go back and continue the celebration with the rest of the staff at Sequoia, because I know from the pictures that I saw in their newsletter this last Sunday evening, they were very, very excited to hear the announcement. So congratulations, Kelly, and I invite you to make a couple comments.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stewart, for those kind words. First of all, thank you on behalf of our students, to all of you and everyone in the district. We're here today because of the amazing support that is provided to us and our students each day and our staff, and that starts with the leadership of the school board and our superintendent and our district administrators, and then all of the staff that actually support and help our students to achieve this. Our students come from all of the other schools in the district as well as ours, so it really is a shared award. And then on behalf of our staff, I just want to thank each of them. Our theme this year is grit, what Angela Duckworth defines as passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. And I don't think there's a group of educators that exhibit grit more with kids, going above and beyond to make that happen for students. So thank you for what you do for us, and on behalf of our students, thank you for the continued support of our programs. We appreciate this award. Thank you. The Sequoia staff would just stand up for a second. We have quite a few here, from our kitchen manager, who's an important part, to our health room assistant, to every position. So did you say you want a picture? So come on up for a picture, guys.
Absolutely.
You gotta get close and pretend like you like each other. Right?
We can do 2 rows, and stagger 2 rows if that helps. Don't have lighting.
So Sequoia team, Principal Shepard and all of you, thank you so much for all the great work you continue to do. We have a certificate here that says 2016 School of Distinction Award is awarded to Sequoia High School in recognition of consistent improvement in reading and math student achievement from 2011 to 2016. Congratulations.
We have more. Good news.
We do. All sorts.
Mr. Wentworth, I'd like to invite you to the lectern. And I know you're comfortable up here because you've been here 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months, so shouldn't be stressed out at all, Tony. So school culture, school culture, school culture. So much has been written about the components of a healthy school culture, and an author could write all about those components if he or she visited Whittier Elementary School. Simply put, teachers are learners, they are positive, enthusiastic, and they believe in helping kids achieve at levels that these kids could never believe that they would ever achieve. Shared habits of both heart and mind are central to the culture of wonder, accountability, mindfulness, and compassion, and those are all alive in the halls, in the gardens, in the classroom at Whittier Elementary. They also welcome many, many volunteers. Many grandparents hang out at Whittier because they believe it's the place to be during the day, and they believe they can make a big difference and are making a difference at the Whittier community. But most of all, this is a school staff that spends a lot of time on reflection. Even when it's hot in July, you will find teachers at Whittier Elementary looking at their test scores and figuring out what they can do to be better. They take the time to reflect on what's working and what's not working, but there's always a focus on our students and what we can do to help each other. So Tony, I want to say congratulations. Thanks for the great work that you've done at Whittier, and invite you to share a few comments.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for all your support, and everyone for your support. That's a huge factor in the success that we've had, and from the teachers, the community, it's everyone collectively working as a team together that's taken us to this level where the students are this successful, and we couldn't do it with the interconnected support from everybody. And it really is a team effort at Whittier. Everybody helps each other. Everybody learns from each other regardless of the experience. Whether they're a veteran teacher or a new teacher, everybody knows that each person has a skill set that is going to help everybody improve and ultimately help all students be successful. So thank you very much. We're very honored with this award. And I will say, looking at the size of the other schools, so I'm also a little embarrassed that I was late in announcing this to my staff, so that's my fault. That I have Donna Kapuska, my assistant principal here. Can I borrow some of the Lowell staff? I won't tell the Whittier staff I said that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have you come on down and take a picture, and you may have to borrow some of the Lowell staff.
This should be much easier.
So this will be much easier, but it's no less important. The certificate is awarded to Whittier Elementary School in recognition of consistent improvement in reading and math student achievement from 2011-2016. Congratulations.
Okay, even though we have this week, go ahead and step in a little bit closer to each other. There we are. All right, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
So now I'd like to invite Monique Bean to the lectern. You can hear that tiger pride behind me. So Garfield Elementary, School of Distinction. So I looked up the word distinction, and it says that means excellent that sets someone or something apart from others. And at Garfield, there are many, many excellent someones and somethings. So one very noticeable something is the way the school manages transitions and change. Believe it or not, but they embrace it, they learn together, and they figure out what they can do to make it better so students benefit from change and transitions. And they do it in a collaborative manner and always trying to find the good in change. So I want to say congratulations for the school for that component. The other part that's very noticeable about that school is they have very strong systems for monitoring, and I really believe that that's one of the reasons they're here. Many, many years ago, they were one of the schools that started our collaborative team meetings that you have consistently, and they take that data and then they align their professional development to that data. So I believe that that's one reason why you're here again. And then finally, if you ever visited their evening events, many, many families come. They are family-friendly events. They are also very student-centered. They get a lot of our high school students to come down and help with the different stations that they have. And I really appreciate it because when I go there, many, many staff members attend and have fun right alongside the students. But most of all, this is a school that takes time to celebrate. They celebrate student successes. They're built into their calendar throughout the year, and they spend time at the end of the year honoring each other's success. So I want to say congratulations to Monique and each one of you who are here this evening, and go back and say congratulations to the other staff members, and especially to the little Tigers. So would you like to say a few words, Monique?
Thank you, Dr. Stewart, and thank you for having us here. On behalf of the staff and the community at Garfield, we want to thank you for honoring us today. Although small in number and the lack of matching T-shirts, we are strong in spirit, and we do work together. We're collaborative, and we have a love for our community, our kids, for their learning, and for each other. And we want to thank you so much.
Did Whittier have a song they wanted to sing? We're working on it.
And Garfield, if you have a song you'd like to sing.
No, we do, but we're not going to sing it.
Come on.
Let me get this out and I'm going to turn it over. So this certificate is awarded to Garfield Elementary School in recognition of consistent improvement in reading and math student achievement from 2011 to 2016. Congratulations. This is a lot of fun.
Would you also please we'll stand a little bit in front row for you to thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
So in recognition of all these celebrations tonight, I think we have some celebratory cake. So we invite you to come up, have a little bit of cake, and please join us. Yes. Where's the cake? Oh, okay. Oh, fantastic.
just us.
It is.
Our little cozy group.
It is.
Just that one for just thank you so much.
All right, well, let's go ahead and reconvene, and that was really exciting. You know, it's exciting to be a part of a district that is just doing great things, and whether it's having the confidence to invest in us because of grants or because of schools of distinction, that's just a lot of fun, so congratulations. We're now at section 6.0, public comments. The school board specifically sets aside 2 times during the regular board meetings to hear from our constituents. We do this because we value public input and we want to hear and understand the perspectives that you bring to the table. Dr. Cohn, are there any public comments during the first public comment agenda time slot?
There are none this evening.
All right, then we will move to section 7.0, consent agenda. Dr. Cohn, will you please provide an introduction to the consent agenda?
The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items. These include meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, and recurring contracts, for example. Sometimes the consent agenda will include items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. The less frequently occurring consent agenda items are usually reviewed by the board in its Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting when those items are scheduled to appear on the consent agenda. This gives the directors time to ask staff questions about those items or to consider having a broader discussion about the policy implications of those items. If consent agenda items are removed by the concurrence of 2 directors, we automatically renumber the remaining items. The board makes a final vote on the consent agenda with a single motion. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding the items. Therefore, we present the consent agenda to you and ask your approval.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cohn. A motion to adopt the consent agenda is in order.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Director Mason and seconded by Director Lassane to approve the consent agenda. Does any director wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in the new business section of our agenda? Hearing no requests, we will proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. We're now at section 8.0, the superintendent report. Dr. Cohn.
Thank you very much. And we're going to go ahead and switch the viewer so that you can see what's on my screen. Thank you very much, Luis. And tonight we actually have, as you may recall, a bit of a kludge of last meeting's items and tonight's items because we didn't get to the report and you wanted me to carry forward a few things. So I wanted first for you to have a picture of some Garfield Elementary students who are smiling for the camera on their first day of school. Agenda highlights tonight. For those who weren't able to see this part of the agenda, the Snohomish County Partnership Grants were part of tonight's agenda, and we're grateful to the council members who were here to help us with that presentation. The annual Student Achievement Report is this evening. Last week at your special meeting, you heard an external analysis of the district's performance over the last year, actually multiple years when you look at some of the elements of the display, as well as some of our perceptual data. This evening, we'll focus on the annual internal Student Achievement Report, and Dr. Matthews is here to present that. You got to recognize Lowell Elementary, the Leopards, who also welcome cats, especially in hats. Lowell is one of the schools in the district that's been awarded a Title I grant. These are few and far between, and we're looking forward to recognizing Lowell in some fashion, probably waffles or something of that nature, in the very near future. You also get to recognize 3 of our schools for School of Distinction Awards, which are long-term exceptional growth awards. I want you to note that these 3 schools are North Region schools. That hasn't occurred as frequently as our South Region and some of our Central Region schools. This is I want to note, this is remarkable work in high poverty schools to develop this level of growth over time. And I'd also note that these schools have been schools that have focused their efforts around that 8-step process and made incredibly exemplary use of collaboration time in their schools to team. So I want to thank those folks. I want you to know the district was recognized by district administration. It's a periodical, a national periodical that publishes high performance examples and speaks to what's happening in districts across the country. They've identified us as a district of distinction for the second year in a row. We're delighted about that. We're delighted to have been recognized by Equal Opportunity Schools as a lead hire school, and I want to thank Becky Ballback for representing the district in Washington, D.C. With folks from the White House and the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation. And I would also share with you, we were invited to go to the White House this week, and frankly, we just weren't able to do that. That's 2 recognitions for the work that we've been doing with respect to closing performance and opportunity gaps. And I want to thank staff overall for those efforts. I think last meeting I probably shared with you that our enrollment has come in very strong again. You may recall that a while back some of our patrons criticized some of our enrollment projections and identified that they were probably overstated. Well, once again, we projected, and I want to thank Jeff and his staff, we projected 19,735 students this year for our budgeting, and on the first count date, the count was 19,715, which is 20 students difference, which is an error of 0.001, and we're expecting that we'll close that gap on the October count date. Jeffrey's laughing. Is it going to go up or down, Jeff?
Mr. President didn't seem to think that was good enough.
Oh, how are we going to improve that? Yeah, we'll get a little tighter, 0.0001. This is 300 students more than last year, so we've got about 500 students growth over 2 years. We've hired about 120 certificated staff and almost 60 classified, not including coaches, to fill positions that were available in the district, some for growth, and of course some as a result of turnover. 7 elementaries in the district are over 600 students: Penny Creek, Emerson, Silver Lake, Woodside, Cedarwood, Forest View, and Mill Creek. And we are, you'll love this, we're up to 40 elementary 5th graders in the South region who signed up to participate in before-school orchestra programs. And we're delighted at the growth we're seeing there. Everett High School's ASB, I want you to know, has put together a bit of a program to share with you what it means to be champs or champions. And this was so good, we played it in cabinet. I'm going to switch the screen because I want you to be able to hear this, and I'm just hoping it works.
Welcome back.
Hi, my name is Michael Larson. I'm the ASB president. I love to dance, and I'm always down to have a good conversation.
My name is Levi Collins. I'm your ASB vice president, and I love all 50 states of this beautiful country.
I'm George Kanalakis. I'm ASB secretary, and I like baseball.
Hey, I'm Triana Rogers, ASB treasurer. I'm super involved here at Everett High School, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
My name's Danielle. I'm a photographer in training, and I am your ASB public relations.
Welcome back! And now here's a short film on how to be a champion.
Consider this for all the freshmen.
Whoa, whoa. Watch where you're going. Sorry. No, don't be sorry. Just be a champion, dude. What's a champion? Hey, Cruz. How you doing? Hey, what's up, Levi? I was just walking, and this kid bumped into me and told me to be a champion. Dude, we go to the school of champions. How do you not know what a champion is? Well, I know what a champion is, but what does it mean to be a champion? Have you not heard of the new acronym? CHAMPS? No. Take a seat. I'll tell you all about it. CHAMPS. It's like an acronym. You know, like character, heart, attitude, mindset, perseverance, strength. But what's that mean? What's character? Character. You know, it's the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual, like being kind, courteous, having forgiveness. Hey, excuse me. I think you dropped this when you were walking earlier.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Don't mention it. But what about heart?
Heart is to love unconditionally and to care for one another.
Okay, that makes sense. Now what about attitude?
Attitude's always about being positive, even in the toughest of times.
You know what, Abdul? If you just keep a positive mindset, you'll be able to do it. Alright? Alright, let's do this. We got this. This chapter mainly talked about how important information, can be, and also how people will go to extreme measures to hide it or present it in a way that gives a certain group or one person the advantage over another. Yes, yes, perfect.
Alright, that makes sense. But could you elaborate a little more on mindset?
Sure, dude. It's all about productive goal setting and maintaining healthy habits throughout your high school career.
Okay, that makes sense. And I know perseverance. That's pushing through things despite difficulty or delay in achieving your goals.
Dang, dude. That's a good one. Alright, so the last one's strength. You know what that means?
I know strength. It's the ability to withstand great force, stress, or pressure, mentally or physically.
And that's it. That's how you be a champion.
Thank you, dude. Let me use that.
Be a champion. It takes character, heart, attitude, a mindset, perseverance, and strength. All these traits make our school the best it can be. Make it a great day over at high school. The choice is yours.
So I wanted you to see that. I thought you'd enjoy that. And I do know that there's a video from Jackson High School, so we're going to get that one for you in the near future and play it too, okay? So thank you very much to the to the students at Everett High for doing that. This is part of the work that the students are doing to improve climate at their school, to welcome freshmen, and to essentially create a common language, a common understanding around important values at the school. Am I correct? Okay, thank you very much. Last meeting, I would have reviewed with you some of the summer's activities. I'm going to go ahead and zip through them. Obviously, school visits drop off a bit during the summertime, but we did have a few as a result of some of the work we're doing. But there are an awful lot of community visits. So during the course of I think the 2 months in between the two board meetings, where I would normally have reported this, I had an opportunity to meet with the mayor of Everett, the Cocoon House CEO. We met with some Housing Hope folks and attended some Housing Hope events, and I had an opportunity to meet with Stanwood Camino YMCA organizing committees. Met a number of times with the United Way and YMCA CEOs as part of my work on their boards. Met with the Equity Matters Northwest founder and principal, Everett Youth Symphony Orchestra board member, as we were working on setting up the relationship with the Everett Youth Symphony. And you may recall my telling you at some point previously they've applied and we've granted a waiver of fees under our normal policy, and the Everett Youth Symphony is now going to practice at Jackson High School, and I think in the very near future they may well start performing at the Civic Auditorium. Had an opportunity to meet with Washington State University's Elson Floyd College of Medicine Advisory Group and met with the Associate Dean of the school. They went over the Allied Health program with us so that we could pick up some, and you could see several more Washington State University folks. We got some great feedback and in fact adjusted the program scope because they thought it very well fit the work that they're doing and want us to help them develop a pipeline from high school to medical school for Everett Public School students, and one that of course can be duplicated in replicated in other school districts. We met with Senator Cantwell's staff, who was helping us look for some federal grants aimed at STEM investments. Met with Congressman Larson's Snohomish County folks on a variety of issues, focused to some degree on what we're doing with homeless students. I visited Jubilee Church at the invitation of Pastor Alvin Moore. Met with the Housing Consortium Director and Housing Authority Director for Everett, and we are doing some work with them around student homelessness in the community, and we were collaborating a bit on the response to Senator Murray. Wanted to let you know that I had an opportunity to meet with the Snow Isle Tech Director, attended a number of the Rotary Club meetings we presented at Rotary Club this month, although you hear about that next month, and also met with both groups as part of our work to sign on sponsors, co-sponsor supporters for Music for Life, which we're hoping to get going this month, although it may take till next month. A number of meetings with United Way folks. You may be aware that United Way is going through a CEO search, and I've been supporting that effort as well. We met with the Economic Alliance CEO, Dr. Gary Gobaum, the Health District Director, who is very excited about our Allied Health program and, in fact, connected us with the physicians in the county to develop some support from those folks as well. I serve on the STEM Executive Leadership Council for Snohomish County STEM Network, and had an opportunity to meet with those folks, and have been at a couple of ESSA accountability work group meetings. Had a get-together with the college president at Everett Community College as we continue to work with them on deepening our relationship and finding more barriers to remove so that students are more successful in both graduating and moving into post-secondary pursuits. So that's a lot of what we did over the summer. As we look at what's ahead, we've got a special board meeting coming up October 4, and that's actually going to be quite a substantial special meeting for you. You'll have both the current and past deputy directors, deputy superintendents from OSPI, one of whom is also the immediate past executive director for WASDA and is now working with the governor's office, and we'll be talking with you about how he sees the outcome of McCleary in the near future, and you'll be getting a bit of an update from the superintendent's office on what's happening with the whole ESSA work group process. Then you've got a regular board meeting coming up on October 11th, and I'm sure we'll have some really exciting things for you. We'll talk about that later in the meeting. That's my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cohn. Very busy this summer.
It was a busy summer, yes.
Busy's good. We're now at section 9.0, the strategic progress monitoring, and tonight we're going to hear about the annual student achievement report. We've set aside 30 minutes for the presentation, 10 minutes for conversation, and Dr. Matthews, we're excited to hear your report.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here. So as everyone knows, I love to talk about data. All right. So you've had a chance to look over the objectives. I'll be reviewing the elements of our current program and some of the results, including data around our gap, changes in levels, and then claim and target data, as well as our correlations with the SAT and the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So you heard some information last week, and just as a reminder, the assessment program for last year was the Smarter Balanced Assessment in English Language Arts and Math for grades 3 through 8. The students in grades 5 and 8 continue to take the MSP in science. However, that's transitioning to online testing and will be entirely online this coming year in anticipation of the change to the next generation science standards and the new tests that will be coming. Students in grades 10 last year continued to have graduation exams at the 10th grade level. And as you might recall, when Smarter Balance was adopted, OSPI, rather than developing a new Common Core test, they allowed the 10th graders to take the Smarter Balance DLA at a graduation cut score, while continuing to require, for accountability purposes, the 11th grade test. In math, however, the last year's 10th grade class, so the class of 2018, were required to pass one of the English end of course exams in math and then the end of course exam in biology, which had been suspended for a year. Some of our 10th graders took the Smarter Balance test in math if they were in Algebra 2 or above, and again, students who take those exams earlier can bank the scores. And then finally, our 11th graders took the Smarter Balanced in English, Language Arts, and Math if they had not already passed it at the college and career level in 10th grade. And then some took it for the purpose of college placement testing as well. So we had a better turnout in that respect. The current class, 10th graders, the class of 2019, they're transitioning their graduation exams to the Smarter Balanced at 11th grade this year. However, OSPI is permitting them to take their exams early in 10th grade, which we support entirely because it gives our kids one more year to take those exams and to prepare. But we are transitioning out of those end of course exams and dropping off HISP entirely this year. So just as a reminder, you heard this last week, we outperformed the state.
No HISP this year.
None at all.
No HISP
One
this
down.
year. Right. Thank you.
Yeah. And then really, we will do end of course one more year, but just for that tail end of seniors a year from now. All right, so we outperformed the state in every test at every grade level, which is a huge celebration for us and for our schools. And in 7 cases, we outperformed them in double digits, which is quite impressive. You saw that data last week. This slide shows the progress toward graduation, and it's based on last spring's active student enrollment. And we add this in because really high school is a very difficult metric to look at right now from a trend standpoint, because we have this awkward position where some kids are really invested in the 10th grade test because their graduation requirement, but not so invested in the 11th grade test, which is the accountability test. So we need other ways to know if we're doing well. And this is the class of 27 and 2018, and you can see our senior class, as has been the case in the past, well on their way to achieving all of their assessment graduation requirements. The other perspective that we like to look at very closely is the perspective of tested, and particularly with this transition to the Common Core and the new test. It's one thing to understand the percent of students who are meeting standard overall, but there are some students who have chosen or to not take the test, have refused to take the test. And so we also need to have some idea of the performance of students who are actually tested, because that's really all we know if they sit down for the test. So for English Language Arts in every grade level, you can see we are in the blue. Our mean scale scores exceeded the level 3 cut score at every single grade level, and you can see we outperformed the state in that respect as well. The yellow bar indicates that cut score at level 3, and the orange indicates Washington State. Equally important, you can see that with the exception of grade 11, we had a greater percentage of students in level 4 in ELA than the state did. In terms of our math scores, again, our math scores, mean math scores, were in level 3 in every single grade level. And in this case, we outperformed the state in terms of the percent of students in level 4 at every single grade level in math, which is exceptionally good. When we look from a school perspective, you can see that with the exception of 4 exams and grade levels, ELA grade 11 and math 6, 7, and 11, more than half of our schools had mean scores exceeding level 3. So our schools are doing very well as well, individually. As you know, we pay particular attention to the achievement gap socioeconomic status, as well as the federal subgroups. And I've just pulled out a couple of grade levels. In your board packet, there's the entire slide deck, and there are a lot of slides. But the important thing is really to understand that there is a great focus on reducing the achievement gap in this district as part of our strategic plan, and it's paying off in many ways, and you saw some of those ways tonight. This is grade 4, and you can see the socioeconomic achievement gap went from 31.5% to 28.8%. And more importantly, both groups went up. And in order for that achievement gap to get smaller with both groups increasing, it means that that lower group has to accelerate. So in this case, we see the non-low-income students, they rose 1%. Whereas the low-income students rose almost 4%. And that's what you have to have in order to close the gap. This is also ELA grade 4, and you can see the same thing here. There's low income right there. Here's our male-female achievement gap at grade 4, and that's another thing that we've been really focused on in all of our schools, is reducing that gap. And you can see we have our female students rising as well as our male students, but some acceleration with our male students. And then here is our grade 4 to ELA ethnicity gap. And in particular, we're looking for groups to be increasing over time. So this is the yellow indicates 2014-15, the red indicates 15-16. And so you can see, for example, the African American students going from 48.4% to 55.7%, and closing in on those higher achieving groups. And for ethnicity, we look to Asian, 2 or more races, and white, as they traditionally are the sort of the top 3 in every grade level. You can see our Pacific Islanders, they continue to be underperforming, but a 7% increase is substantial. Here's grade 4 in math. Again, you see the non-low-income students improving their performance as well as low-income students. And we would consider this a flat change in our gap from 31.2 to 31.4. In ELA, we saw 4 grade levels that either decreased the gap or were flat, and then we saw 3 grade levels that had a slight increase in the gap. In math, it was 4 as well, closing in on the gap or flat. Here's math grade 4. One of the things that I like to see, and you heard this from Mr. Lobdell last week, here's our ELL students going from 27.9 to 35.8, with our non-ELL students going from 67.6 to 70.1. So again, both students and groups of students increasing, but that gap is certainly closing with the acceleration of performance of the ELL students. And then here is our math performance. And I would say in terms of groups that have a large enough population size, we're focused on African American and Black, Hispanic and Pacific Islander and Native Hawaiian. And you can see each of those groups, the trend is an upward trend for grade 4 in math. And we saw that trend in other grade levels as well. So last week you had a view of students' performance levels, the percent of students who are making those jumps between levels as they progress toward achieving standard within 3 years. And I want to give you a little different look at that data. And the perspective that I'm coming at it with is more a perspective for schools to look at in terms of setting goals for individual students. So first of all, one of the things that you have to understand is that we typically do see this this pattern of a larger number of students meeting level 3 and 4 based on socioeconomic status. So that is always a concern for us. In this case, you see Evergreen sort of a standout, a little bit of an outlier, but that's a typical pattern for ELA, and then you can see here for math. So what does that mean, though, in terms of actual students jumping between levels and meeting the more rigorous standards? So this poster is actually this big. I'll tell you what you're looking at. Each of these columns represents a grade level. And the red indicates the range of scores for level 1. The blue is level 4, and then you can see levels 2 in yellow and green in green. Green is 3. So in the past, we had that 400. Kids had to beat 400 to meet standard. But now we have an increasing score that students need to meet standard, and we have more rigorous standards at each grade level. So when we talk about students improving their level, it's a bigger jump than you might think of if you're imagining that old score system where everybody just sort of has to hit 400. So when we look at level 1 and 4 compared to level 2 and 3, then what does it take to actually make that jump between levels? So here's the change in ELA levels for our middle school, grade 8. And on the y-axis here, you will see their level in 2015, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the number of students that jumped or changed what their level was in 2016. So for example, here's level 3 in 2015. 113 of those kids made a jump to level 4. And of our students in level 2, 87 made a jump to level 3 in 1 year. And here we have level 1. We had 41 who made a jump to level 3 and, 2, and then 10 made a jump to level 3. Here's math, same thing. 98 students made that jump from level 3 to 4. From level 2 to 3, there were 46 students, 10 made it to level 4, and then of the students in level 1, 44 made it to level 2, and then 3 made it to level 3. All right, so what does that mean? You know that there are different cut scores for each grade level, and to put it in to quantify what that means for a student, if you are in the minimum level and you want to jump to if you're in the minimum score at one level and you want to jump the next year to the minimum at the next level, it is a very large number. 405 points to go from level 1, the bottom of level 1 to the bottom of level 2 from grades 7 to 8. In math, 396 points. So when we have a kid make that jump, depending on where they are in level 1, it can be a substantial number of points. To go from level 2 in 7th grade to level 3 in 8th grade, that minimum to minimum, it's still 88 points. And then for math, it's 102 points. It's quite a lot. And even if we're talking about kids who are at the top of the chart, so to just go from the top of one to the bottom of the next one, so you have to gain 9 points against more rigorous standards on a harder test. So you're not taking the same test. That 9 points is a meaningful number. 16 if you want to jump from 2 to 3, and 20 in math. So when we map out all of these kids then, here we have change in scale score of 0. So these are kids on that line who made no change at all in their scale score. And here we have the cut score for that grade level. And you can see our medians for change in scale score is 29 points for ELA in grade 5, and the median scale score is 2,700 points. So this whole group of students was above the median for both change in their score and their actual score. So these are the kids who are doing well. They're on that trajectory, right? And this group of students made improvements in their scale scores, and they met standard, right? So this is capturing a little bit a larger group, but they're not making that necessarily that same acceleration of standard, particularly if they are in this little rectangle right here. And these are sort of our at hope kids, right? Because they are making great gains in their scale score, and though they may not be at standard yet, now that they've jumped to a new grade level, they're on that trajectory for improvement. So who we are then focusing on are these students who are not making an improvement in their scale score and they're below standard, or the students who are above standard but they're really not growing, and you've got to do that because you're not just hitting the 400 now. Now you have to go to a higher standard and a more rigorous set of learning standards in the Common Core. Oops. And this is just a distribution of those. So to show you that a large number of our students are making gains in their scores, and that's where we need to really focus, is helping kids to meet the standards of the next grade level at a higher level. This is the same data for math. So you can hear here's our 0 point, there's our cut score, and our medians. The scale score should say 69, my apologies. Here are our students that are doing really well. Now on this chart, as well as the other one, you can see it's an upward trajectory, right? If you look at the correlation between these points against the regression line, it is moving in the upward direction. It is interesting that we have this interesting cut right here. I haven't quite figured out. So here are our kids who are growing. They're above the median. Here are our students who are growing, and they met the cut scale score. Still a substantial number of our kids. Our at hope kids, they're growing. They're not quite at standard yet. And then here are our concerns. And each of the schools has this information about how much their scale score changed, what levels they're at, and what their current standards are, and by student. And then here's our distribution. So still a substantial number of students making growth. Okay, so another a big improvement this year from OSPI was more detailed information that is actionable for our schools. So you'll remember this from last year. These are the claim areas for reading, or for English language arts: reading, listening and speaking, writing, and research and inquiry. And we're provided with a percent of students who are at or above standard, above standard, at or near, or below standard. And that at or near is kind of a concern, right? Because we don't know if our students are at standard or they're near standard. So we need more detailed information. So last year, we were provided with each of the targets on the test, and then a performance level relative to the entire test. Okay? So the problem with this measure is that if overall you're not doing very well, then your relative performance to the whole test doesn't tell you much. If you're at 27% passing, then being equal to that is not necessarily a good thing. Okay? So this year, we're provided with performance relative to proficiency. So how are we doing in terms of our students meeting the specific learning targets relative to being proficient at them? So for English language arts, there's a chart like this for reading, speaking and listening, research and inquiry, and writing. Here is where you can see the problem with how this information was provided to schools last year. These two targets, key details and central ideas, they both had an equal to performance on the test last year. But when we look at proficiency, there's a big difference. On one, they're above standard, and one, they're below standard. So schools have this information about their individual, about their school, but also from a teacher standpoint, they can look at it in a variety of different ways. And in fact, our reading specialists are analyzing this data to set their professional development for the year. Here's math. I will just tell you, OSPI made a little mistake and only provided math with the concepts and procedures targets this year. It was an error. And we've talked to them about it. They're not going to be able to go backwards and provide the rest of the data, but going forward, that is their plan. Okay, so the last piece of information I want to share with you is a correlation with SBA and the SAT. So we provide the SAT to all students free of charge in the junior year, and that's part of our commitment to college and career readiness. It's also part of our commitment to equity. And the SAT was redesigned this year to shift to evidence-based reading and writing and mathematics. And those measures put the tasks on the SAT in a similar method as on the Smarter Balanced, in that they are designed to align with how students will use English language arts and math in the college or work setting. Okay, so this is our correlation to Evidence-based reading and writing with the SBA scale score. And in particular, you want to look at this top row. All the green indicate very strong correlation. So really anything above 0.7 shows a strong correlation between the two measures, which is great because remember, this is the test that's being allowed to be used for college placement decisions. So this is telling us it is measuring similar items as the SAT. You can see here, English language learners, no correlation at all. And that's actually not unpredictable. It's not unexpected. And that's because English language learners have a range of skills and abilities. And so finding a correlation with a small population of students on two tests is fairly difficult to do. So this breaks our students down by gender and special program as well as socioeconomic status. And here we have evidence-based reading and writing compared to ELA, SBA by ethnicity. I will note that while technically African American and blacks show slightly lower correlation, it's 0.699, so to put that in perspective, if they had hit 0.700, it would have been strong, very strong. So they're very close in terms of their correlation. And then here's math. Math ranged quite a bit more, and you will notice that that is because we are correlating it with the end of course exams here. So there was a high correlation for some groups. English language learners were lower, as were special ed. And for geometry, English learners much lower. And that's likely because less of them took the geometry test than the algebra test. And here we have the correlation by ethnicity. And again, I think the African American and black correlation being low in geometry is likely just less students took it because you only have to pass one test. All right, so in summary, we outperformed the state consistently on our test again this year. Our students did perform a little less well in math than in ELA, except in grade 3, and that's a focus for us, and it's improving, I think. You saw that last week. The improvement targets that we are developing for equity targets, for example, are helping to guide school improvement planning and in that way improve student learning. I think that our performance levels show an acceleration of learning for some of our what I would consider academically more fragile populations are the ones that have struggled over time a little bit more. And then just I think the correlation with the SAT really demonstrates the Common Core's alignment to the college and career readiness standards, which was their claim all along. Do you have any questions?
Right. Thank you, Dr. Matthews, and thank you for a very complete report. It's exciting to see this data just evolve over time. I mean, there's a lot of information here. Directors or student representative, do we have any questions for Catherine?
I do. Thank you for all your explanations. You put this in, you synthesize the data in a way that is easier to understand, given the volume of it. I'm going to start, I have a couple questions, but I'm going to start with the correlation with the SAT demonstrates alignment to college and career readiness, because I didn't see in, I might have missed them in the bigger deck, but are we looking at sort of the comparison of the college career? I feel like at one point we have cut score versus the graduation cut score, and sort of tracking that and where we are with that in terms of truly getting students to a college and career ready level?
Yes, great question. So that particular data set actually came out of the SAT report I just wrote for the class of 2017 junior administration. So it's literally junior SAT, junior SBA. Yes.
Okay. So, so you're looking at the SAT as the college and career sort of level comparison? Is that?
So, well, I guess with the redesign of the SAT, which was very much research-based, based on research around college and career readiness, they moved to questions that are much more the application of English language arts and mathematical concepts in ways
Yes.
that would be used in college or in career. So yeah, a proxy for it. I would
Okay.
not say that that's the only thing. When we look at the college readiness indicators, I think we're still looking at a much broader set of data, SBA, SAT, AP, course enrollment patterns,
Right.
everything.
Right. Okay, and then that's actually another question I had was the progress towards graduation. Those percentages were very high in terms of meeting the end of course or the requirements, the testing requirements. How do those correlate to the percentages of kids that? Let me try and ask it in a different way. Those percentages are they consistent with the percentages of kids that aren't on track to graduate, or do most kids meet those requirements and it's other reasons why they don't? I guess I'm trying to understand is how many don't meet the actual test requirements
Right.
versus other reasons why.
So I think the progress to graduation presentation that you see every year, and I think I gave 3 or 4 times, it is not generally the assessment that prevents
Correct.
a student from
that.
graduating. And so I think students who are more off track have a more difficult time passing the assessment. I would say that for ELL students, it is the greatest barrier because for special education students, there are significant alternative options. And while all students have additional options like taking the SAT, the ACT, certain AP courses, those are fairly high-level bars. So when a student qualifies for special education, then they have access to a whole series of additional off-grade level testing, portfolio, locally determined assessment, basic, all of those things which are the high school assessment system at a different standard and appropriate for that child, right? ELL does not have that option. In fact, it's written into the federal law that way.
Yeah. Okay. I did just have one other question. I was looking at the socioeconomic gap, and although they're trending in the right direction, it seems like the gap is greater with the SBA than it used to be with other tests. Is that not true? I mean, I'm looking at numbers 25 to 30 some percent on almost all of them.
Yeah,
and
I
that seems
think
like
that
the
it
gap
is.
itself grew. And can you address that?
Well,
I know, are there conversations around why that's occurring?
I think we talked about this last year as well. You have to remember that the Common Core is a much more rigorous standard. And so there are some characteristics of low-income students and language minority students that will make accessing them a little bit more difficult. And so those are going to require strategies that are being built into school improvement plans now around how we shift from to a deeper, more rigorous way of thinking. And I would be happy to talk at length at that. But, I don't know if you want to spend much time on this. Socioeconomic status, for example, students who come from low-income and working-class backgrounds typically are raised in an environment where asking deep questions is not necessarily encouraged. And so we have to look at that in the classroom and say, how can we reignite that curiosity? How can we make it possible for those kids to ask the big questions? And that's a shift in how we teach. And I think that shift is happening in our schools for sure.
All right. Do we have other questions from directors?
I appreciate all the effort that you went into providing the data like you did for us today, and I appreciate that. Because what I do like is being able to see how the scores or the results of the data shows from grades 3 to 4 to 5. Because the hope is that as kids are progressing through school, by the time they graduate, their scores have consistently gone in the upward direction and not just stayed flat. My question, and perhaps I didn't hear it very clearly, is can you go over again the Pearson correlation and how they figured that out? How do they figure it out for each of the different groups? And how did they come up with that number?
Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, I'm going to show you actually this chart really quickly. All right, so imagine rather than change in scale score and scale score, we had on this line SBA score and on this line SAT score. So the mathematical principle is to measure the distance from the line that is exactly in the middle of all the points and to essentially calculate the strength of the relationship between those two numbers, okay? And so a Pearson correlation runs from -1 to 1. And a -1 would mean as one number goes down, so does the other, and it goes down exactly the same rate, okay? If it was 1, it would mean that one goes up as, if it was a positive number, it goes up with the other number. That's what you see here in this line right here, is that it's trending upward. Both numbers increase together, okay? So the distance from 0, though, is how strong that is, right? So when we see numbers, as we did with the ELL students, of 0.270, that's virtually no correlation at all, because on a scale of 0 to 1, that's very, very far away from that line, the average distance. So what it's saying there is that you can't really predict with any certainty that someone's score in one area would go up at the same rate as the other score, okay? And we think of it in terms of the percentage of variation in one thing being attributed to the other, okay? So when we have a correlation of 0.8, then square that number and you get 0.64. So 64% of variation in one variable might be explained by the other variable. That's a lot, okay? So when this is run, and I don't do the math by hand anymore, thank goodness. There's a program that we use, and basically what I do is I take the entire school district's 11th grade, and I run all the data for the entire class, and then I break them down, so comparing boys to girls, and then each of the ethnic groups, and looking at the correlation for just that group of students.
It identifies that correlation for that group, but it does not explain, what is the word I'm trying to get? It doesn't explain the outcome.
It's not predictive and it's not causal. So, for example, let's just look at the African Americans at 0.699 compared to Asians at 0.789. So what this would say to me is there's a much stronger relationship between an Asian student's score on their SBA and the SAT. Okay, if you look at that line, they're tighter and closer to that average line, that regression line. Not so much for African American students. Now that should just cause us to ask the question, and that's what data is about, right? It doesn't necessarily tell the story. And the first question that I would be asking is, what are the other attributes of this African American population versus this Asian population that could explain that? Because we want to solve the right problem. And the problem isn't about ethnicity, right? There's something going on that's causing this correlation to be different, right? So Hispanic students have a lower correlation. Does that have to do with, are a lot of them ELL? I don't know. Low income. We have to dig deeper. And that's what we're talking about.
But how are you planning to use this as professional development in trying to provide information to 11th grade teachers and their preparations for the students to take the SAT in order to accomplish a particular outcome?
Right. So so separating SAT.
But I'm using SAT only because for 11th graders, that is the tool that identifies those that go on and are prepared to go on to college.
Absolutely.
That is the tool that we're using for continual career and college readiness.
Right.
And so the concern I have is, how are we going to use this data to then develop professional development that identifies what is necessary for students to prepare for that next level for themselves?
Right. So you, I believe, received a copy of the SAT report. And so each school gets that report, which is very detailed about how our students are doing overall. And then they get all the same data for their kids. So they're able to look at the district and their students to see what are the critical areas for their students, right? So we provide that to them, and then working with schools, depending on their school improvement plan and what their needs are, then I might go in and interpret the data, but there might be other resources that individual schools seek out, and that is probably a better question for teaching and learning in terms of how the high schools do that. Your work with the high schools, how are they using the SATs?
Well, it isn't just the SATs. They take a look, and Sally can probably help me because you're recently in high school, but they take a look at all their data. And so they do an analysis of all their data. So for example, I was in a school today, and they were looking at all the pieces of their data, and they had a team of about 10 people using that data, looking at best practices. So they had other research there, and then they were creating their action items based on that. And then after that, they were saying, okay, based on these action items, what professional development do we need? So it's data informs the action items, which informs their professional development.
Catherine, why did you put these slides in this presentation?
Well, the reason that I included this particular set of slides is because I think it's important to verify that Smarter Balance as a test is getting us toward college and career readiness. And so as we look at this K-12, we talked about college and career readiness, K-12. This 11th grade test is the one that schools are using, colleges are using for placement reasons. And so this is an affirmation, really, that if we are calling the SAT an admissions test that's widely accepted, very research-based, how does that correlate with our students' performance on the SBA? And it correlates very highly.
Are any local colleges using the SBA results for admission?
Not for admission, for placement. They're not allowed to use it for admissions, but placement. Well, we have a compact in the state, and it's actually across many states. There's something like 44 other colleges, or two. Yeah, it's on my website. So colleges continue to use SAT and ACT because that has been the traditional test, but they are acknowledging Smarter Balance, more rigorous standard, the foundation of the college and career readiness anchor standards, so that when they look at those scores and they're able to say these students are ready for entry-level college credit-bearing coursework. And I was a part of that process of developing that and with community colleges and other assessment directors. And it was a very extensive process of looking at the standards and looking at the rigor of the test and setting those cut scores that would be accepted. And I think this is what the kind of thing that substantiates that.
So your purpose wasn't to argue for the SAT as a graduation test?
No.
Or to argue for the ELA as a college admission test. It was to show the strength of the relationship between.
Yeah, as a measure that our kids are ready for college credit-bearing coursework.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I hope that was not a misunderstanding. Can I just also add, Director Lassane, so at the beginning of the year this year, we're very, very fortunate this year to have time to provide all the schools with all their saucer slides in August. And have an extensive period of time to look at the data. And SAT, the AP, all those things are included in the high school coursework.
That's good. Thank you.
Other questions for Dr. Matthews? Student representative? No? All right. Well, Catherine, thank you. And good questions. Very good questions. And thank you for your time. With the board's permission, I'm going to ask that we move our break to after the second public comment period. We have some folks that would like to make public comment. And so we're now at section 10.0, information discussion. We have no information discussion items scheduled for the agenda. And so we're now at section 11.0. We have come to the second time slot in our agenda. Section 11.0, Dr. Cohn, I believe we have a distinguished representative coming forward.
We have a request for opportunity to speak to the board. Former Washington State Patrolman, former United States Coast Guardsman, former sheriff, former county executive, and current state representative John Lovick is here this evening to talk with you for a few moments.
Former almost everything. Well, first of all, good evening, and that was very, very interesting. I'm glad I had a chance to stick around and watch the presentation. Just for the record, my name is John Lovick, and I currently serve in the state legislature. And the most important part about that is that I was assigned to the House Education Committee. And I served previously for 9 years, and I always wanted to serve on the Education Committee. And now I'm on the committee. But in the last 10 days, I went on a personal mission, and I want to share with you what that mission was. My mission was to visit every single school in the 44th Legislative District. And as of yesterday, I completed that mission. And I'm only telling you that to say this. I heard someone talk about schools, and I think the comment was, your schools are no good. I just wanted to go out and sit and talk with the principals, visit with the stakeholders, and find out just what was going on. Because I want you to know this, my kids attended Woodside Elementary 40 years ago, and I volunteer there every Friday in a third grade reading class. And I'm only going to tell you this, and I hope you guys will take this to heart. I am so proud and pleased with what is going on in our schools. I talk to principals, I talk to teachers, I would walk around in neighborhoods and ask people, what do you think about your schools? And to the person, people love their schools, and I mean that sincerely. They absolutely love their schools. So I'm only saying that to say this. In my service, as I get to continue, I will serve with no regrets and absolutely no fears. I know that there are a tremendous amount of needs out in our community, out in our schools, and I'm going to serve with no fears on the things that I know we will have to do. I'm going to share with you just quickly some of the things that I would ask principals. The most significant thing I would ask is I would ask, what gets you up every day? When you have a school like Woodside, I can tell you the number of portables in Woodside and all the way up to Sunnyside, which is in the Marysville School District. Ask me, I'll tell you the number of portables in every school. I can tell you the number of kids in every single school. So I asked these principals, I said, what gets you up every day? And you know, to the person, they were all so excited because they want these youngsters to succeed. And I'm saying that because that is going to be my message when I go back to the legislature. Because when I served my first 9 years, I was on a criminal justice committee. And every single day, we would have legislation that would come up that had to do with criminal justice, whether it be tough laws on drunk driving, tough new laws on this, tough new laws on sex offenders. And I would hear legislators say, I haven't heard from my sheriff or my police chief on these issues. But I never heard a legislator say, I have not had a chance to talk to my superintendent, my principal, my teacher. I want to be a resource for you. When vital things come up in the legislature, I hope to be a resource because a wonderful lady by the name of Gwen Eiffel said, and there are no troubled schools, she said, fixing troubled schools should be the Civil Rights Act of the 21st century. And I think we need to take that to heart. Thank you very, very much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lovick, and thank you what you're doing for students across our 44th district. Appreciate that. So we are now at our break. It is 6:20. We will recess until 6:35.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. No.
Can you cash it?
I don't know if to try that.
You have to sign your name to the back.
I need a giant marker for the back.
Giant marker, yeah.
We've got it wrong.
Yes. Or, oh, do we not add it up correctly? Maybe we didn't add it right.
We must have it wrong in the board chart.
Yeah, we didn't add it correctly. He said about 30. When he said 30,000, I said, wait a minute, it says 20. But then when you add it, 11 and 18.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Different Wilson.
Yeah, my daughter had Wilbur. I was wondering.
Supposed to be a pretty big one.
But
What did your son think of this?
I was going to say real quickly, I just read recently that 2/3 of the students are using took the ACT and are using
I was just telling Pam,
the SAT.
we give the PSAT and the SAT as barrier reduction tools. We don't want kids who can't afford it
Coming from the Pacific
not to be able to
Ocean,
have it.
probably come to the east side first.
Ready? Take another bite. Very, we're going to extend this for 20 more seconds.
But all the way through. Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I'm up next.
Whatever.
Haven't you? We will now reconvene. We're now at section 12.0. We have no unfinished business for this evening, so we will now move to section 13.0, the new business section, and we have no new business for this evening. So now we're at section 14.0, upcoming agenda items. Dr. Cohn, what are our upcoming agenda items?
Item 14.1 is your special meeting schedule for October 4. We actually have two topics for that meeting. One is the implications of the new Every Student Succeeds Act, and you'll have representation from OSPI Deputy Superintendent Gil Mendoza. Plans to be here to work through with you the process that the state is using to respond to the federal government's request for input before the implementation rules are completed, and also to respond with respect to the state's approach to the local implementation of the ESSA. You're also going to have some opportunity to speak with the former Deputy Superintendent at OSPI and former Executive Director of the State School Directors Association, Alan Burke, who is on contract with the Governor's Office and is traveling throughout the state talking with education groups about the McCleary case and likely solutions to McCleary based on the products of a number of work groups that have produced reports over the last few years on education topics that are directly related to McCleary, especially around employee compensation. By the way, that will probably be in a 3.5-hour meeting, so we're going to make sure that you've got some food at that meeting as well. 14.2 is your regular meeting on October 11th. The strategic progress monitoring item that evening is the integrated technology plan. Chief Information Officer is going to be leading a team to present that information to you. And then you'll have a policy review first reading. Not Police 1240, but Policy 1240, which is the duties of individual board members. We are conforming it to statutory changes. You also have a number of general operating business items And those are listed there for you.
All right, thank you. We're now at section 15.0, Board Superintendent comments and board meeting evaluation. Who would like to get us started? Don't all jump at once. Well, I will go ahead and get started. It is amazing to see 19,700 students. When we look at our projections and when we look at what we're looking for, the bond and levy, and to see those numbers continue to tick up and to have confidence. I know I was giving Mr. Moore a hard time by being off by 0.0001%, but the public can have a high degree of confidence in our accuracy and our projection, and I think that bodes well as we move forward. That's a really big deal. And so I thought that was very, very good information. And certainly the School of Distinctions, Dr. Cohn pointed out the recognition that these are all North End schools. And so for that work to be done with a very challenged population at times really speaks to the quality of the leadership of those schools. So that was great news.
I have no comments.
Any other comments?
I have no comments.
Okay. Student representative, do you have any comments that you'd like to share with the group tonight?
Sure. So I just want to say I found today's meeting very enjoyable, especially with standardized testing being such a big part of my life right now. I found it very informative and relevant.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. We're now at section 16.0 from time to executive closed session. We have scheduled 30 minutes for executive session tonight. From time to time, the Board of Directors will hold an executive session or a closed session for a purpose authorized by the Open Public Meetings Act. If this occurs, the board will recess for a certain amount of time. Before convening in the executive session, the President will publicly announce the general purpose for excluding the public from the meeting place, the time when an executive session will be concluded, and whether action is expected to be taken following the executive session. An executive session may be extended to a stated later time by announcement of the President. All executive sessions and closed session discussions are confidential and will be held in confidence by each board member. The board will now reconvene into executive session for 30 minutes.
To consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration could cause likelihood of increased price. No action will be taken after the meeting.
We will reconvene at 7:10. Thank you.